So before I get started, let me be very clear. I don't think that anyone should suffer and die or starve or have anything done to them because they don't believe in a certain religion or believe in the primary religion that the majority of people believe in. But I do find it disingenuous how Christians are promoting the situation in Sudan by the fact that there are people who are dying, and the claim is that they are dying merely for their Christian beliefs, when this is not the case whatsoever. Are there some violence towards Christians? Are there some vandalism towards Christians, imprisonments and things of that nature? Of course there is. Is this the sanctioning and the reason why Sudan is going through this civil war right now? Absolutely not. And I find it hypocritical that Christians will talk about the other Christians in Sudan who are being persecuted, who are being attacked, but yet they will forget about, from the time frame of Darfur, of how Sunni Muslims are the primary group of people that are being attacked in Sudan. They are the primary ones since early 2000s who have suffered hundreds of thousands of people's death because of their belief in Sunni Muslim. See, what most people don't understand is the history of Sudan. In the history of Sudan, what you have is a situation where originally Sudan in the 4th century CE became a Christian nation through the help of Justinian I, and then also with the fact that the Axiom Empire had converted in the 4th century, that through negotiations that the North Sudanese society became Muslim, and they remained Muslim. They became Christian, and they remained Christian for a good 400 years. But then with the Arab invasion and Arab migration from 700 CE up until today, the country became more of a Muslim country, and they have a Muslim-oriented government. Now, in our more recent times, because of Darfur, during the time frame of Darfur, which I believe started around 2001, 2003, that genocide began, and it was Sunni Muslims that they were killing. And the overwhelming majority of the population in Sudan are different variations of Muslim Islam. So, now that we understand that the country itself is majority 98% Islamic, 90% Islamic, about 10% of the population then is a mixture of local religions, indigenous religion, and then Christians. It is both the indigenous religious people, the Christians, as well as the Sunni Muslims, who are the ones that are being persecuted, the ones who have violence acted on them. But yet Christians want to claim that, it's just the Christians who are being persecuted. That is not the truth. They do not ever tell you the entire story. And then, since we're talking about Africa, and we're going to keep this in Africa, for 32 of the 54 countries in Africa also persecute, whether they are Christian or Muslims, they persecute the LGBTQ community. Christians don't talk about that. They don't talk about how in those 32 countries that are both Christian and Muslim, that they have laws against LGBTQ. Whether we're talking about Uganda or we're talking about Nigeria or any of these other countries, they don't talk about that part. And it's not just in the Muslim areas, this is in both Muslim and Christian areas. So when the government is ran by Islamic or Christian government, then both of them display violence, excommunication out of the country, imprisonment. Some even go as far as giving the death penalty for anyone who participates in the LGBTQ community. This is in both Christian and Muslim countries of the 32 in Africa that have laws against these things. Why don't they talk about that? Why don't they talk about the vigilante murders and the vigilante beatings that is received by that community, by both Christians and Muslims? That part they like to leave out. Why? Because it doesn't support their cause. It doesn't support their thought process. You see, most of them are looking at this from the lens of an American lens. And when you're looking at it from the lens of America, then you're going to think that, oh, these other countries that are Christian, when they're ran by Christians, people are going to vote their way into this or vote their way that, or the lawmakers are going to deplore the violence or any other type of mistreatment of people because we're such a great nation. But no, it doesn't work that way. Just like in the 70s and the 60s and the 50s, that, and the 80s and the 90s actually, that people were being persecuted and beaten because who they choose to love, then, oh, we're not thinking about that. We're thinking about how people may think more of today, which, understand, the majority of that thought process is from people who did not grow up in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, who weren't overly indoctrinated into Christianity, who weren't hearing all these sermons that are about anti-gay, and that they must be banished or they must be beaten or things of that nature. No, we have different generations that are walking around today, so we're going to get different information, different thought processes. But you still go to a Christian church, and what do they talk? Sexual immorality, homosexuality. That's all they want to talk about. That's all they want to push. They don't talk about all the adultery that goes on in their church, all the child abuse that goes on in their church, the stealing of money and things of that nature that goes on in these churches. Those things are quite often left out of the equation. And when you consistently leave out of the equation every other type of atrocity that happens in your community, every other atrocity that happens in your religion, every atrocity that happens in other countries, and just focus on your own, you're being a hypocrite. You've been a hypocrite because you're trying to force a narrative. And that is the problem when they try to come up and talk about these things. They'll say, oh, in China. It is mostly Buddhist, a certain type of Buddhism that's persecuted in China as the primary, not Christians. You can teach Christianity in China. You just have to have a government license to do so. And so when you look at that from a American mentality, you think that it's persecution, and it's not. The ones who are persecuted are the ones who do not have a license. So they're disobeying the law, which you're supposed to obey the law. So all of this is a bunch of bullshit. It's truly terrible that anybody's been persecuted anywhere just for living their life as they choose to live that doesn't affect anybody else around them. But religious people are going to do their religious things and have their persecutions and have their ethnocentric genocides and their racial genocides and their lifestyle genocides, because they all got to be right. So always remember, in order for us to have a greater world, we have to truly allow everyone to free themselves to be themselves, because their greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibration.